Welcome back to the Optimize You podcast, the place where we're helping you optimize looking and feeling your best. If you enjoy the show, be sure to share it with a friend, like, and subscribe. And let's get into today's podcast.
Like last 6 months to a year for sure have not been consistent on this side of the camera.
What specifically, like what stands out to you in the last 6 months that you're like, damn, I dropped the ball on that, or I'm actively trying to improve that right now?
It's crazy because this was something that was the most consistent for like 10 years maybe, but workouts really have just been. I actually like recently canceled my gym membership because I was just like, you know what, I've been working out from home, and I hadn't gone to the gym in like 2 months probably, and like I'm just kind of donating to the gym. And so I like haven't been as like that's been the lack of for a while. This whole year, 2024. Like I'll go on strings where I'm really consistent in the gym. We'll go on strings where I'm not. We'll go on strings where it's like I'm just not. I'm kind of just maintaining. Like it's that maintenance workout where it's like I'm just doing something to get something in, right? Feel better. But I would say like it's kind of the main drivers, right? It's like workout and nutrition have been two of my things that have just kind of been the roller coaster where, and really like I think maybe I was just so dialed with it for a long period of time that any deviation from it feels like it's a lot worse than it is. Where it's like it's not as bad as I definitely know that workouts have not been amazing. And I remember when I was maybe even at the start of the year I was hitting PR after PR. You remember that when I was talking about
you're crushing.
Like, I think I had like a 100-pound PR on my deadlift, and like I was doing like 4 plates on like RDLs and stuff. Like I was like doing these, like I was like superhuman strength. People probably thought I was on roids or something up in the gym, but that like I just kind of stopped going to the gym, and I was doing a lot more like quick workouts from home. But that also what that has made me realize too is like what I've learned throughout that process is like, because I had like kind of body dysmorphia. I feel like kind of a lot of people in the fitness industry who do the stuff that we do, and who really are heavy, who have been heavy into the gym at least, and heavy into nutrition, have maybe some sort of like body issues, body dysmorphia, where you're like, you maybe see a warped view of yourself in the mirror. Other people see it a lot differently. And I think that plays into it too, where it's like, oh, like, it's almost like my mind goes into freak out mode when I'm not like working. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to lose all this progress. Or like, oh, wow, I had 2 days where I like ate like complete shit. Like, oh, I'm going to lose all this progress. And it's crazy how like after the dust settles over a few days, it's like your body didn't really change much. And so I think that this in a sense has been this year, although it has been a struggle in nutrition side, like consistency, and workout side consistency, I think it's been a really good like year for me to have, where I'm like, oh, you know what? Like I can have a lot of time where I'm not doing all the things that I used to do and still like look pretty good, feel pretty good, and like be able to move the needle forward. And so it's like, if I can get that stuff dialed in a little bit more, which I think will be easier coming up here, when I'm moving into Marissa's place here soon, and I think the popping back and forth and all that, like it just is a little bit more difficult for me to be as consistent with some of those things, and so I think that'll get a little bit easier there. But I think that just it's always like having rough spells on anything, and it's like I'm in sales and you're in sales, like having weeks where you don't do good. There's a lot of good things that come from that too, right? It's like learning to adapt and learning to fail and succeed from the failure. Like learning when it comes to workouts, it's like learning to like know that how your body works, and that, oh wait, like learning kind of how your mind works. And it's like, oh, I have the tendency to kind of go a little bit crazy, like kind of think that it's the end of the world when I'm not doing certain things, but really it's not, and my body's going to come back and be in a good spot. And learning, oh, what do I need to do to get myself back in the right direction? I don't know, I'm just literally saying random shit at this point.
No, well, you said something. You were talking about failure, dude. And I wrote something down the other day, and it was make aggressive mistakes, aka imperfect action, instead of passive mistakes or inaction. And that was said by Layla Hermosi. And I was like, dude,
Oh
that's
yeah.
it. That's exactly it, man. Like, and you know, when you said that, and you're like making mistakes or not being perfect or finding these scenarios, like you mentioned sales, like where we constantly fail. Like we're going to get rejected. We're going to get told no. And so it's just like building that callus of like, oh yeah, it isn't, we build it up so much in our head. Like we're going to be like the worst thing ever. And it's almost like this anticipation of something that we haven't even been told no yet, or haven't even jumped on the call, and we're already like in fear of it. And so it's like, versus switching that mentality and just being like, dude, screw it. Like whatever the outcome is, the outcome is. And when it's shitty, you actually have some data there when it goes shitty, right? Now you're like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. It actually wasn't that bad because now I have answers. I have answers to the test now. And so it's like you can go and retake the test as many times as you want. That's like the cool part about it. So
Yeah.
I think when you're like, dang, dude, I'm not as consistent as I am with my routine, and the consistency is a little bit harder bouncing back and forth between houses. It's like, I think you're in a position now where you're like, you're getting that data, you're like receiving that data back. And like, now you have the choice to go, okay, can I fine tune this and tweak it and make incremental change and progress and go forward, which we both know that you're going to do. But I think a lot of people are in those same scenarios where they get that data and then they don't do anything with it. Right. They're just like, man, I know I'm shit in the bed. I know I should be doing something, which is where like coaching comes in. Right. Like, but I think that's the difference between somebody like yourself who has the experience. You almost, like, the way I look at your scenario that you're going through right now and the way you just explained it is like you have so much compounded interest accrued that you can afford to take some time off and look the way that you look and feel the way that you do. Whereas the general person that may go through the similar scenarios as you, like you were off for like the last 6 months or didn't go to your gym for like the last 2 months, maybe somebody's living their whole life like that. Right. So like,
Yeah.
totally different. So I think you have that compounded interest, which is great because it's more incentive for people who are just getting started. Like, dude, you can slip off and you can fall off track and you can be off for a little bit, and you're not going to take like 20 steps backwards and undo all your progress. Like you're a perfect example of that. Like, dude, you can mess up, you can make mistakes, you can be less consistent, and like you can still have all these wins. So those are
Yeah.
some takeaways that I took where you were just talking.
That's good, dude. It's a good point because like it does come from, you know, starting in high school lifting weights, right? So building a lot of muscle over the course of that time, and really what you're saying is like muscle is that, it's that leeway, right? Like
Yeah.
the more muscle you have on your body, the more leeway that you do have, and the longer it's going to take you from like kind of falling off the wagon to like getting super far away. It's like these small little, like it's like, oh, I'm kind of like on this roller coaster. But also like one thing that popped into my head when you were talking about all of that is like, I think it's like these these days or these even meals where it's like a shit show, right? They stand out a lot more than the other times where it's like you might feel like you're way off course because you've had more of these days or meals where it's just kind of a shit show. But then you look at these other days and it's like, you know what, like kind of taking even a step back and looking from the outside, I'm like, you know what, my nutrition actually hasn't been that bad. You know, it's like it's maybe it's just more of like 60-40, like 60% like quality foods, 40% not as quality, or maybe even 65-35. Like I've probably been living like in that 60-40, 65-35 quality to not quality foods, or nutritious to not as nutritious foods, which in the grand scheme of things for certain people that's like amazing, right?
Yeah.
And for us, even like that's not too bad. Like in how
Mm-mm.
we coach, we coach to try to be closer to that 80-20, or I even say 70-30. Like I think like that's even a great amount. Like it allows balance, it allows freedom, it allows you to go out to eat and go to events and like not be worried that you're gonna just ruin the week and be so far off the scales. And so like it's really not too far away from where I actually kind of coach my clients to be.
Yeah. And I think it's like, it's crazy because each individual is going to be on their journey at a different place, you know, and they're different. We talked about like you kind of having more muscle, building that over a super long period of time, like even dating back to the high school days and then continuously doing that, having it be part of your job and like living. And then all of a sudden, you know, if you shit the bed for the last 6 months, it's like, dude, I mean, 6 months compared to last however many years, right? Like, so there's a difference there versus like somebody that they're doing this for the first time. I think it's very easy for them to bury themselves mentally, because here's what I see a lot with clients who are beginning their journey is like they get in momentums and they get going really, really well. And so now they've like accepted that as their new standard, and anything less, they feel like a failure. So it's like, man, if I deviate from this, you know, I hit my 10,000 steps and I hit my 3 or 4 workouts and I hit my protein targets and I hit my calories and I dominated my sleep. And then the next week, say like 2 of those things are off, like their sleep drops to like 4 hours of sleep and they missed one workout because of it. It tells more about the person and their mindset and their resiliency and what lens they're looking through to see and kind of determine their trajectory and how they're going to do in their journey. And you can see at what stage they're at. So like a veteran that goes through those same exact things that I was just talking about, like yourself, let's just say hypothetically, like that was you. Like, dude, your ability to bounce back and recover is going to be so quick because you've been there before. But somebody brand new in their journey, like especially when they start their program, like newer clients, that's a huge hurdle for them. And a lot of them are, they can see and look back to previous times where they faced those challenges. And they're like, damn, that was the point where I threw in the towel. Like that was where I gave up. That was where, since everything wasn't perfect, I was just like, oh, screw it. Like I'm not as good as what I once was doing. You know, I was crushing it, but now I'm just shit in the bed. So I might as well not even try.
Yeah.
And so it's a huge mental shift for people when they have the ability to, like what we were referring back to the sales calls, like, dude, here's some no's. Like you have to hear no's, and you have to hear no's fast, like fail fast, super quick. And it takes away this pressure of like having to be perfect during your process. Nobody's going to bat 1,000 in health and fitness. Nobody's going to bat 1,000 in sales calls. Like it just ain't going to happen. So the quicker you kind of accept it and like get dirty, the process becomes more enjoyable. You take a lot of stress off your shoulders for sure.
Oh yeah, dude. And I struggle with that too, that perfection. I think that's always been a struggle for me, is with a lot of different things where it's like, you know, you see the bar of what you can do, and then it's like you always compare everything to that. Right? It's like, oh, like in all the different areas, like in career, in health and fitness, in so the nutrition, workouts, whatever it is, it's so easy to see, oh, I was perfect that one week, and then like now it's like you said, it's like, oh, I didn't get one workout in, oh, shitty week. And it's like almost failing yourself on the week because of one thing you did, or like a few choices. You're like, oh shit, like I went crazy on that ice cream that one night. And it's like, fuck it. Like it's such
Fuck
a
it,
like
dude.
it really
Yeah.
doesn't matter that much. It's just these small things. And it's kind of fun talking through this because like I'm in the midst of this, and like really like
Yeah.
my nutrition has actually been pretty good here for a few weeks now again. But I've definitely been through that roller coaster of like having some days where it's like way off the rails and just not.
Yeah.
And I had a surgery a few weeks ago. And so I've been limited on the workout side of things. So I've been trying to get a lot of steps in, and it's like just kind of knowing that that you're doing something right. And it's like it's easy to try to think that you have to, and having these expectations that you're going to be perfect every week, but also like that's not really that fun too. It's like you
Nah.
got to enjoy like the food
Yeah.
you want to enjoy. That's kind of what this year's been about, is like trying to find balance. Like I think that's almost the summary of my year, almost 9 or almost 8 months in, right? We're almost through 8 months. It's almost like Alex's year of trying to find that balance of nutrition and, you know, all like being healthy and eating healthy, but also enjoying the sweets, and also like, you know, not going like crazy in the gym, like, but also like still moving forward, moving the needle forward, like being healthy and being strong and being in shape still, and liking what I see in the mirror. And so it's kind of like that's what it's been like. And now we're starting to mold into something that that maybe is is good, but I think it's such a learning curve, and it just does take a long time when you have been somebody who's maybe more of a perfectionist to to whittle it down and like kind of like go way below what you really want on the balance side and go above and like kind of live in the extremes and like kind of just quickly go down a little bit and find your way to.
Yeah, it's I think it could be super complicated. It's actually like when you think about it, it's like it's so intricate because I think it's so individualized depending on who you're talking to. You know, like
Yeah.
if it's somebody super advanced, their story is going to be a little bit different. If it's somebody's brand new, I think the easiest way, this is how I like to look at it, and the easiest way, and if I'm aware enough and I have the self-awareness to remind myself, it's why we developed our program in seasons too, right? Like in phases, and just understand like, okay, what phase am I in right now? If I'm not in like a fat loss, super buckled down, like dialed in, got to be hitting my targets to yield a specific outcome because very specific things are required. If I'm not in that phase, then I can be a little bit more lax. I can be a little bit more lenient, and I should be able to be okay with that. Like every season is not exactly the same. There's going to be different seasons. And so I think knowing what season you're in is super important. And it's like, okay to have like these short stints or these short like durations of hyper focused, a little bit more lax focus, enjoying yourself a little bit more. It kind of goes into what you're talking about with the balance stuff.
Yeah.
And then it's okay to transition into seasons where you're extremely unbalanced. Maybe you want to move the needle like really far in something, and that's going to require some unbalanced shit. Like you're going to have to cut some things off. Like you're going to have to completely dive in focus wise if your true desire is to achieve something, right? Like if it's like, oh, I want to get that single digit % body fat or whatever it is, right? Like if it's something hyper focused, then damn, that's going to take a season of you got to set aside and go, okay, am I willing to commit to this? And if I am, even though I am, and it's a hyper focused phase, I still got to be okay with scraping my knees through the process and like getting dirty and fucking it up and being okay with like not hitting things perfect, because that's required to go through it, is like to not be perfect. You have to actually fail as you go through it. And I think the quicker somebody grasps that and accepts that concept, they won't be afraid, or they'll take this huge like weight lifted off their shoulder of like, oh yeah, I could just go fail fast. It'd be like coming in the game and it's like it's the first time you're at like a new level in baseball, and it's like, dude, they're throwing cheese, they're hitting their spots really well, like the pitchers are so dominant. It's like, dude, just go in there and take like 10 pitches. Who cares if you strike out, you strike out, but just at least try to get your timing down, like try to track some pitches, try to see where the hand release point is. Like they're throwing much harder, but you got to go in there. If you screw the outcome, like just go in there and get your feet wet. Like whatever the outcome is, the outcome is. If they blow it by you, they blow it by you, but at least you get to see like what 95, 100 looks like get in there, like get messy. And so I think that's with everything, man. I think we put too much pressure on ourselves to try to be perfect in certain processes. And then once we get off, we want to be super hard on ourselves, which is good. It's a good competitive like feature to have or characteristic to have. But I think that veteran mindset comes in when you cannot be harsh on yourself and just take it for face value and just take the data from it and go, okay, now I have the choice. Do I want to be better because of this, or do I just want to keep shit in the bed and not make changes? It's like you basically have that decision to make, I think. So I don't know. That's my 2 cents on it.
Yeah. I think that's really good. That's really good. I think a lot of it comes down to as well, like awareness of who you
For
are,
sure.
really.
For sure.
Right. It's like figuring out how you operate, right? Figuring out how you react to certain situations. And once you can start to figure out that, it's like, you maybe allow yourself a little bit of space between that. Like it's like I've always struggled with like when I'm tired or when I'm like, you just like get like sleep deprived or something like that. It's like I kind of jump to conclusions, or like I see things like from a different lens that's not as valuable, maybe a little more negative, maybe a little bit more like pessimistic, right? It's a little bit easier for me to be hard on myself, to be hard on other people from that point of view. And so it's like once you know that, it's like you can kind of take a step back and create space in between like some of these decisions that maybe you would just split second react to, and be like disappointed later on that you did it, or that you like, oh, why did I do that? Why did I react this way? Why did I, get mad at this, like, go like crazy extreme on something because I didn't like what I saw in the mirror that day because I was sleep deprived, right? It's like all those things. And so I think that's something I would even challenge our listeners to think about, is like trying to like really just pinpoint who you are, you know. And that's not to say you can't change it, but I think that just knowing that there's certain ways that everybody reacts to certain situations, and there's certain things that we do that that probably aren't helping us get to our goals, then we create that space, and we can change the outcome. Like I have many things that I'm doing this for right now. It's like, oh, becoming aware, and it's like sometimes it just takes a while, right? And you're like, oh, like I know I do this, but I'm just not keeping it top of mind. And then eventually it just clicks, right? It's like, oh, okay, it clicks. Like, it's like you just kind of, you start to think, like, before making decisions, like, just give yourself a little bit more time, and maybe you can kind of, that's enough time for you to, for it to sink in that you're following that same pattern that you normally follow, and to be able to take a different little turn and be a little bit more happy with the result, and also just be making progress towards your goals. And, you know, whether that's feeling your best, looking your best, whether that's something within a relationship that you have, whether that's something within a career choice, like that you're trying to get better. I mean, I think all of us are generally trying to get better versions of ourselves and personal growth and become better humans. And we all have normal patterns that we follow that kind of move us back at times. And so that's a piece that has been top of mind for me.
Dude, that's huge. That's a skill, right? Like that has to be developed over time. You talked about like being reactive in your natural state. Maybe if your reactive response is more negative, and it doesn't serve you, then that's a great opportunity. Like what you're saying, do you have the ability and the discipline to pause for a second and just take a step back and like assess the situation? That requires self-awareness, dude. That's huge. That's a skill. Most people, like when they get cut off on the freeway and they want to road rage with somebody and speed up to them and flip them off, and like before you do that, hold on. Like maybe that person was trying to rush their wife to the hospital, right? Like because they're pregnant, you know, and you're in a reactive state. Like you're going to pull a gun on this person. You can't wait to speed up and flip them off. Like, you know, so it's like, it's a skill, dude. It's a skill that's developed. If that reactive state is not beneficial, because I think you could have, if you develop characteristics and your identity super strong and you develop habits through tons of consistency, and that reactive state is beneficial for you, by all means, keep that reactive state. But if you have a reactive state that is not serving you, and 9 times out of 10, it's detrimental for you, or it forces you to look through this negative, pessimistic lens, then there's opportunity there for it. And that's a skill set that's developed, you know? So yeah, I think it's interesting, man. I think we all do it. And it's just like making sure that we're hyper aware of where do we do it where it's beneficial for us, where we're more of like a veteran and a pro because we've seen so many repetitions in that field or that avenue or that dimension. And then where are we a rookie still, where we're just in a reactive state, where like, I'll give you a super random example because I love fishing, but if you've ever frog fished, this is one thing I had to get used to, is like when you're your frog just basically goes on top of the water, and you're giving it a couple pops and you're waiting for the fish to blow up on the top of the water. They're coming up and they're crushing it. If you're super reactive, like which I am, because it'll have your adrenaline going, your heart race is going, you go to set the hook as fast as you can. As soon as they blow up from it, they haven't completely bit it in their mouth yet. So you're not going to hook them, right? A lot of times too, if they blow up on it and they're facing you and you go to set the hook, when their mouth is facing you, sometimes they haven't closed it all the way yet. So you can pull your frog right out of their mouth. So despite seeing that first initial thing, that blow up on the top of the water, see that once they have it in their mouth and then they're swimming away from it, from you or the top of the water, now your hooks can penetrate the top of the mouth. That's when you set the hook. So it takes like a 1001, 1002, 1003, then set the hook after that initial blow up on the top of the water. But the first couple of times you have it happen to you, you get so excited and you set the hook and you pull the frog away from them, you know? So it's like, I think I know it's a weird analogy, but we do that in life too. It's like, what are the things that we react to so quickly where we could have took a step back and been more intentional, in better control, made a better decision, and made something that was maybe a little bit more beneficial for us versus just being in this reactive, negative, pessimistic state.
Yeah. I like that, dude. it's like patience too with
Yeah.
it, because it's it's like I go through seasons with it, man. I've been so good with it at times. Like I'm sure you could watch old podcasts and you'd see a completely different me, right?
For sure.
I know you can. Like
Yeah,
last
for
year,
sure.
when we started doing this, I was in this huge personal growth, like so like locked into all these different things. And it's kind of funny how like you just go through different areas and it's like, okay, I like maybe that was a little extreme, right? It's like I don't really need to do that.
Yeah.
Um, and there's different things that I've been able to accomplish and do over the last year that have been huge for my personal growth in different areas. And so it's like all of it kind of like there's just different areas at different times that you're going to be a little bit more like focused on. And then it just throughout the year, it's just like goes like this. And then like we figure shit out and we grow nonetheless. But sometimes I feel like you can, maybe what I'm trying to say is like, sometimes I think like I have to be growing in all the different areas when it's impossible to be doing that, right? It's like
Totally.
there's only certain things that you can actually be growing in at the same time. And so I don't know, sometimes we have these conversations and it just makes me think a lot and it like helps me a lot. So I'm like
Definitely.
because I mean we come on here, we had honestly half the time have no fucking idea what we're going to talk about. It's like we
Yeah.
just kind of go in, we're like, okay, let's do this, like
Or we have a general
talk about a
topic. Yeah.
mistake. Yeah, let's
Yeah.
talk about mistakes today again, and then it leads us to other things that hopefully help you guys out. Hopefully you enjoyed this, Matt. You got
No, man, I think we covered everything. I think the biggest baseline here, foundational piece is understand it's never going to be perfect. Fail quick, fail fast, learn from it, take the data, use it to go forward and become better. I mean, it's required. So
I love it. Well, hey, if you guys enjoyed this one, all that we ask is that you share with a friend, find somebody who you think can enjoy this podcast in general, this episode. Send it to them. We appreciate you guys. We hope you have a great rest of the day, a great rest of the week, and we'll be talking to you soon.